Tales of the Eastern Man Crossing the Gate of Hanazono-in, Part 37. Once upon a time, a man from the east, without knowing why, crossed the gate of Hanazono-in while riding a horse. People inside the temple saw this and rushed over to grab the horse's reins and hold down the stirrups, bringing him inside the gate. As they gathered near the inner gate, the commotion caught the attention of the temple. The temple asked, "What is the noise about?" They replied, "There is a man riding a horse crossing the gate, and we are bringing him in." Hearing this, the temple was angered and said, "Why should someone ride a horse across my gate? That fellow should dismount and face south." Two people took the reins on either side of the horse, and another two held the stirrups as they guided the man to face south. The temple watched from behind a screen in the southern part of the hall. The man, over 30 years old, had a dark beard and well-groomed hair. His face was somewhat long, fair in complexion, and had an elegant appearance. He wore a woven straw hat from which his face was partially visible, giving the impression of a person of substance. He was dressed in a dark blue robe with a white undergarment and wore red shoes. He had a large sword at his side and carried a quiver with 40 arrows. As he was led into the temple, the horse pranced wildly, making it seem like a great challenge to control. The temple officials took hold of the horse as it was brought inside. As the temple observed the horse's spiritedness, they were moved and decided to let the horse roam the garden freely. The man loosened the reins and gently spurred the horse, which began to settle down and kneel. Seeing this, the temple felt a surge of compassion and ordered, "Let the ones holding the stirrups and reins step aside." As everyone moved away, the horse became even more spirited. The man, feeling free, loosened the ropes and urged the horse forward. Realizing that the horse was well trained, the temple commanded, "Bring forth a bow." Once handed, the man tucked the bow under his arm and rode off. Meanwhile, the inner gate was crowded with onlookers, captivated by the spectacle. The man rode around the garden, then charged toward the gate, urging his horse to sprint forward. The crowd at the inner gate suddenly scattered, some running away in fear of being kicked, while others were knocked down by the horse's charge. In the meantime, the man bolted through the gate and dashed down to Doin, fleeing as if he were flying. The temple attendants chased after him, but they were left far behind and lost sight of him, unsure of where he had gone. The temple remarked, "That fellow must be an exceptionally bold thief." Yet they felt no anger and simply ceased their pursuit. The man's intent to escape was indeed strong, but as he fled, it turned into a futile effort, and thus the story has been passed down. The Fall of Fujiwara no Noritada, governor of Shinano at Misaka, Chapter 38. Once upon a time, there was a man named Fujiwara no Noritada, governor of Shinano. He was sent to govern his province, and when his term was over, he returned to the capital. As he was crossing the Misaka Pass, he was accompanied by many horses, some carrying loads and many people riding them. Among these riders, Noritada himself rode a horse. As they proceeded, the horse Noritada was riding happened to step on the suspension bridge's plank with its hind leg, breaking the wood. While still on horseback, Noritada fell headlong into the abyss below. The depth was so great that none could fathom it. It was impossible for Noritada to survive. The sight of massive cedar and cypress trees growing from the bottom, visible as small branches far below, indicated the extreme depth. Given the circumstances, no one believed Noritada could emerge unscathed. The attendants dismounted and lined up along the bridge, looking down into the abyss, but there was nothing they could do. They lamented, saying, "If there were any place to descend, we would go down to see the governor's condition. After another day of travel, perhaps we could find a shallower route and circle around to investigate. But for now, there is no way to descend to the bottom. What can be done?" While they were discussing this, they faintly heard a distant voice from below. "The governor is alive," someone shouted, and one of the retainers called out, "Lord Noritada, are you all right?" The voice of the governor, though distant, was heard responding, "Send down a long rope tied to a basket." Realizing that Noritada was still alive and clinging to something, they hurriedly gathered many ropes from their equipment, tied them together, and lowered the basket down. The rope seemed endless as they let it down, but finally it stopped being pulled. They thought, It must have reached the bottom now when a faint voice came from below. Pull me up. Hearing this, they began pulling the rope, and as it rose, it seemed unnaturally light. Someone remarked, "This basket is far too light. If the governor were riding it, it should feel heavier." Another person suggested, "Perhaps he is holding onto tree branches, making it lighter." As they continued pulling, they saw that the basket had returned filled with nothing but mushrooms. They were puzzled and looked at one another in confusion, asking, "What is this?" At that moment, they heard another voice from the depths calling, "Send it down again." Obeying the voice, they lowered the basket once more. This time, when the call to pull up came, the basket felt extremely heavy. It took the efforts of many to pull it up, and when they finally lifted it, they found the governor, Noritada, sitting in the basket. He was clutching the rope with one hand and holding a bundle of mushrooms in the other. Once he was safely on the bridge, the retainers gathered around, rejoicing. They asked, "What sort of mushrooms are these?" Noritada replied, "As I fell, my horse plunged quickly to the bottom, but I was delayed and flailed as I descended. Luckily, I happened to fall onto a branch that stopped my fall. As I grabbed hold of the branch and looked down, I saw a large tree with sturdy branches, so I climbed down and held on to it. The tree was covered with mushrooms, so I couldn't resist picking as many as I could reach and putting them into the basket before being pulled up. There are likely still more mushrooms down there. There were so many, it was hard to leave them behind. It feels as though I have made a great profit." The retainers laughed and said, "It seems you have indeed profited, my lord." Noritada, scolding them, said, "Don't speak nonsense, you fools. It feels as if I've entered a mountain of treasure and returned empty-handed. There's an old saying, a governor, even when he falls, should grab a handful of soil." The senior steward, though inwardly displeased, responded, "Indeed, that is true. You did well to make the most of the situation and not leave empty-handed. In times of crisis, your calm mind allows you to handle everything as if it were an ordinary day. This is why you have been able to govern the province well and return to the capital in good standing. The people of the province love and cherish you like parents, and your prosperity is assured for thousands of years." Although they spoke seriously, the retainers couldn't help but laugh among themselves. Reflecting on this event, it is remarkable that even in such a perilous situation, Noritada did not lose his composure and focused on picking mushrooms. One can only imagine how much he might have gathered had there been something even more valuable down there. Those who hear this story can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it. Thus, the story has been passed down. The Tale of the Tapeworm Who Became Governor of Shinano, Chapter 39. Once upon a time, there was a woman who had a tapeworm, tunbai, inside her belly. She became the wife of a man named Shik, and after becoming pregnant, she gave birth to a son. This son was called Shik. As he grew into adulthood, he eventually attained an official rank and was finally appointed governor of Shinano. When he first descended to his new province, a grand banquet was held in his honor at the foot of the mountains. The governor, along with many attendants, joined the feast. Many local people also gathered. As the governor sat at the banquet, he looked down the line of tables from his own seat to the last, and he saw that each table, without exception, was filled with nothing but walnuts. Seeing this, the governor was overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness and shame, feeling as if his very being was withering away. Unable to bear it any longer, the governor asked, "Why are so many walnuts served at this banquet? What is the meaning of this?" A local answered, "This land is filled with walnut trees in every direction. Therefore, for your meals and for the people of your residence, we always serve walnuts in abundance." Hearing this, the governor felt even more despair, as if his spirit was being drained. Observing the governor's distress, one of the elders of the province, a man who had served many years and was knowledgeable about all matters, became suspicious. He thought to himself, could it be that this governor was born from a tapeworm and has now come here to serve as governor of Shinano? His expression shows that he is deeply unsettled. I shall test him. The elder had a strong brew made by an old sake with finely ground walnuts. He placed it into a flask and, after heating it, had it brought to the governor. The elder himself carried the sake cup on a tray, raised it to his forehead in respectful deference, and presented it to the governor. The governor took the cup, and as the elder poured the walnut sock into it, the drink appeared cloudy and white due to the ground walnuts. Seeing this, the governor felt deeply uneasy. As the elder poured one cup for him, the governor remarked, "The color of this sake is unusual, cloudy and white, unlike any sake I know. What is the meaning of this?" The elder responded, "In this province, it is a long-standing custom to serve this old walnut sake at the welcoming banquet for the newly appointed governor. It has been a tradition for over 3 years. The officials of the province bring this flask to the governor, who must drink it." The governor, hearing this formal explanation, became even more distressed. He trembled uncontrollably. However, as the elder insisted, "It is a custom that must be observed," the governor, still shaking, drew the cup closer and muttered, "Indeed, as a tapeworm man, I cannot bear this." And with that, his form melted into water and disappeared. His body was completely gone. The attendants, witnessing this, were utterly astonished and began to shout in confusion, asking, "What in the world just happened?" At that moment, the elder said, "Did you not know? This governor was born from a tapeworm." When he saw the walnuts served in such abundance, he was overcome with distress. Observing this, I suspected the truth, having heard of such things before, so I decided to test him. In the end, he could not endure it and dissolved away. After this explanation, the elder and the local officials gathered together and returned to their province, abandoning the situation. The attendants of the governor, having no choice, returned to the capital. When the tale of what happened was told, the governor's wife and family learned of it and realized he was indeed born from a tapeworm. Thus, it was known from that day forward. Reflecting on this story, it appears even tapeworms can take human form and live among us. Those who hear this tale laugh, for it is a truly rare and curious event. Thus, the story has been passed down. The Story of Melons Stolen by Mysterious Magic, Chapter 40. Once upon a time, around July, there were some servants who had loaded melons onto many horses in Yamato province and were making their way to the capital, Kyoto. As they traveled, they arrived at a place north of Uji, where there was a tree known as Narinu persimmon tree. Under the shade of this tree, the servants all stopped to rest, taking down the baskets of melons from the horses and cooling off. While resting, a few of the servants secretly took some of the melons they were carrying, cut them up, and began to eat. As they did so, an old man, who appeared extremely aged, came along. He was wearing a straw hat with a middle knot, simple sandals, and using a walking stick to make his way to the servants who were eating the melons. He seemed weak, and while fanning himself slowly, he quietly sat beside them, observing them as they ate. After watching them for a short while, the old man said, "Please, give me one of those melons. My throat is parched, and I have no way to quench my thirst." The servants replied, "These melons are not ours. While we'd love to offer you one, they belong to someone else, as they are meant to be sent to the capital. We cannot let you eat them." The old man, disappointed, said, "What unkind masters you are. It is good to show compassion to the elderly. If you won't share, then I shall grow my own melons." The servants, thinking the old man was joking, laughed at him, mocking him. "What nonsense!" The old man then picked up a piece of wood lying nearby and began digging the ground beside him as if preparing to plant something. The servants watched in surprise, wondering what he was doing, and saw him gather the melon seeds from the rinds they had discarded and plant them in the freshly dug earth. Before long, small sprouts appeared from the seeds. The servants were astonished as the two-leaved seedlings quickly grew into vines. The vines spread rapidly, producing blossoms, which then turned into large, beautifully ripened melons in no time. The servants were shocked by the miraculous growth and began to suspect that the old man might be some kind of god or spirit. The old man then picked a melon and began eating it. As he ate, he said to the servants, "Since you refuse to share your melons, I have grown these. Now, eat." The servants, in awe, followed the old man's lead and ate the melons. There were so many melons that they even called over other travelers passing by, who all joyfully joined in and ate. Once they had all eaten their fill, the old man stood up and said, "Now I shall take my leave," and departed. His whereabouts after that were unknown. Afterward, when the servants decided to resume their journey and load the horses with the melons again, they realized that while the baskets were still there, not a single melon remained. The servants clapped their hands in amazement, realizing that the old man had magically taken all their melons, making them unable to see it happen. Though they were resentful, they couldn't do anything about it since the old man had disappeared. Left with no choice, they all returned to Yamato empty-handed. Those who had witnessed the event could not help but marvel at the mystery of it all and laughed about it afterward. Had the servants shared just 2 or 3 melons with the old man, perhaps they wouldn't have lost them all. It seems the old man, too, had his reasons for acting as he did. Perhaps he was a trickster or some kind of supernatural being. In any case, no one ever learned who the old man truly was, and thus the story has been passed down. The story of the toad that knocked people down at the Konoe Gate, 41st tale. Once upon a time, during the reign of Emperor Skasht-Shek, there was a toad at the Konoe Gate that caused people to fall down. For some unknown reason, a large toad would appear inside the Konoe Gate. Every evening at dusk, it emerged and flattened itself, lying still like a stone. When people, both high-ranking officials and commoners, passed through the gate and unknowingly stepped on the toad, they would inevitably stumble and fall. As soon as the person fell, the toad would crawl away and disappear. Eventually, people came to know about this peculiar situation. However, no matter how much they knew about it, those who stepped on the toad would still stumble and fall. One day, a man from the university, who was a notorious fool and a man known for his crude humor and mockery, heard about this toad. He said, "I will definitely try stepping on it once and fall, but after understanding how it works, even if someone deliberately pushes me, I won't fall again." With that bold declaration, he left the university one evening, planning to visit a lady he knew at the palace. On his way, he encountered the toad lying flat inside the Konoe Gate. The university man thought to himself, "Though others may have been tricked by this toad, it will not deceive me." He confidently tried to jump over the toad, but because his headgear was loose, his crown fell without him realizing it. His crown hit his sandal, and thinking it was the toad causing him to fall, he muttered angrily, "It's this blasted toad that's making me fall. It is." He stomped hard on what he thought was the toad, but it was his fallen crown. Frustrated, he exerted all his strength, stepping on it harder and harder. At that moment, someone inside the palace lit a torch and brought it to the gate, just as a high-ranking nobleman was about to exit. Seeing the light, the university man crouched in front of the bridge, pretending to be respectful. The guards, waving their torches, saw him and exclaimed, "What's this? What are you doing here?" They noticed a man with disheveled hair and a formal outer robe. As the guards grew suspicious, the university man loudly declared, "You must have heard the rumors. I am Fujiwara, a student of the classics and history, and I have come to capture the toad that knocks people down at the Konoe Gate." Hearing this, the nobleman laughed and asked, "What on earth is this nonsense?" He ordered his attendants to drag the man forward so they could take a look at him. In the scuffle, the man's outer robe was torn, and he was left humiliated, scratching his head. He suddenly realized his crown was missing and thought, "These attendants must have stolen it." He shouted angrily, "Where is my crown? Give it back! Give it back!" He began running after them, but stumbled and fell flat on his face in the middle of the main road at Konoe. He hit the ground hard, scraping his face and bleeding. Covering his face with his sleeves, he wandered off aimlessly, not knowing where he was going. After some time, he saw a light in the distance. Desperate, he approached a small house and knocked, but no one answered. It was already late at night. Exhausted and confused, he lay down by a ditch near the house. At dawn, the villagers woke up and, seeing a man with disheveled hair in formal attire lying there with his face covered in blood, cried out in shock, "What is this?" When they gathered around, the university man woke up and, feeling humiliated, wandered back the way he had come. In the past, there were foolish people like this. Even though he was a university student, he was as much of a fool as anyone else. It is strange to think that someone so lacking in wisdom could have studied literature so diligently. Therefore, it is best not to rely solely on outward appearances. One must be mindful of their inner self. This story is not widely known, but the university man recounted it himself, and thus the story has been passed down.